Hello everybody, video here for you today. This is the No Cap recap of the Curse of Oak Island Season 12, 2-hour season premiere called The New DIGS. Originally aired November 12th, 2024. If you missed any of my recaps of the previous episodes, there's a link to my Oak Island playlist in the upper right. Let's get into it. Previously, on the Curse of Oak Island, people have been looking for an incredible treasure for 229 years. The opening war room meeting is an all hands on deck this time, so the team meets in the interpretive center. This year, new areas have been added to the blob and baby blob areas due to continuous high gold readings from water tests. The yellow oval is one and the light blue pie is another. The west of the garden shaft has also been leveled for a borehole operation there. The first core drilling borehole is DN7 in the pie, and several yards southeast of that, the team is going to excavate shaft 2 to get wood samples for dendrochronology testing to verify that it is indeed shaft 2. Shaft 1 is the original money pit shaft, and the location of that has long been lost. Shaft 2 was dug 14 feet away by an early searcher group in 1805. To go lower than the 90-foot mark where the money pit flooded when the 90-foot stone was removed. Once lower, the searchers would tunnel from shaft 2 to the money pit in hopes of avoiding the flood tunnel. Unfortunately, the tunnel did flood right before the money pit was reached. Everyone got out safely, but a short while later, those present heard loud crashing underground, leading them to believe that both the money pit and shaft 2 collapsed. The team will also revisit borehole C1. This image is a more zoomed in shot featuring C1 on the left and the blob and the garden shaft in the upper middle and shaft 2 in the lower middle. It also shows the grid system that Lagina team uses. Unfortunately, it appears that the team has given up on the garden shaft after it flooded twice last season, once due to a storm and then later in the year due to probe drilling piercing what they think is a flood tunnel. They get a nice piece of wood for dendro, but will dig further down to get more pieces. The archaeologists are over on lot 15, which is home of the pirate piles or cairns that were arranged to match the Hyades star cluster in the 1200s. The Nolan's Cross boulders were also arranged to match a star cluster in that same time period. Rick and Marty are assisting as the archaeologists are digging under one of the pirate piles, and Rick points out a layer of fractured slate and thinks it would have been placed there purposefully. He also says the big stones on either side and the smaller ones in the middle would also be on purpose to keep the pirate pile stable. Back in the money pit area, shaft 2 has been excavated lower and Peter uses a mirror to direct some light down into it. Later, Marty says he is always amazed that people built these shafts and other structures without technology. Gary Metal detects a rosehead spike in the spoils. Used between 1790 and 1840, that does fit in with the creation dating of shaft 2. Also in the money pit area, the DN7 borehole begins shooting up water, so they think it could be a structure filled with air. Eventually, though, they run into virgin soil, so this borehole is a dead end. On lot 15, Dr. Spooner determines that the slate would have had to been transported to the area since slate is on the western side of the island only. Rick says that he thinks the construction method matches that of the rock wall between lots 26 and 27. On lot 26, there's also a well that matches that same 1200s dating, and the well has a high silver content reading in water tests. Back at the shaft 2 excavation, Rick sees this dowel and spoils. Dowels are generally earlier construction method than spikes or nails. The team is thinking that the bottom of the shaft is older and that the top was possibly refurbished at some point. There's also the problem of the shaft being too big. In that time period, they would have been 6 by 10 or 6 by 12 at the most. The measurement here is 17 feet. Craig suggests that it's two different shafts. The overhead shot shows how shaft 2A, as they are now calling it, continues into the area to the right of the garden shaft. And it's mapped out here. After we arrive at the lab, narrator Robert Clotworthy reminds us that in the previous season, the team arranged the lifting of the cone E, or bottom of the Nolan's Cross boulder, and underneath that was found organic material as well as a concretion or conglomerate that had hair sticking out of it. Unfortunately, we do not get any DNA or carbon dating information on that, but Moya has matched the material in the concretion to material from Lot 5 and also from deep within the money pit, which would seem to link those three locations. The data shows that they all match to at least 95%. This is a more north-south view of shaft 2A, which I personally appreciate, having a horrible sense of direction and geography. This is another shot of it, more east-west aligned, as it has been extended further beside the garden shaft. At this point, I thought about flooding, but the garden shaft flooded from much further down, and I think from the other side. The narrator tells us that there were no documented shafts dug next to shaft 2. The excavation uncovers this intact wall, so Rick and Scott jump down to take a look. They discover that the construction technique and wall measurements are very similar to the garden shaft, which they thought was a searcher shaft, but wood from the bottom of it dated to 1735, 60 years before the money pit discovery. Wood from the 50-foot level also had high traces of gold, likely from water with high gold content. Billy points out that shaft 2, the garden shaft, and the new 2A shaft are all within the same 30 feet. Gary and Peter arrive on Lot 4 to metal detect spoils from last year's archaeological excavation of the Lot 5 big feature. Gary immediately detects this cut coin and they take it to the lab. The X-ray fluorescence scanner says it's silver. Emma will do CT scanning on it to get more info. When the conglomerate information was given in the lab, Marty said, "We're lifting cone E again." And it is indeed lifted and set down safely. There's no puddle underneath this time, but there is another concretion. Dr. Spooner also gets some organic material to carbon date. Back in the money pit area, the shaft 2A excavation has extended to underneath the garden shaft platform, as you can see. Marty points out that the clay and soil are packed in really tight and says it's amazing and that it almost implies trying to hide it, which perhaps matches the hiding the Lot 5 structures and creating the swamp. Marty also says maybe it's a depositor shaft. The CT scan revealed this info on the cut coin, and Emma was able to match it up to a William III English shilling minted in 1697. It supports Laird's theory that the Lot 5 structures were built before the discovery of the money pit in 1795. Doug tells of a book called Oak Island and Its Lost Treasure that tells of English military on Oak Island in that time period trying to recover the Concepcion treasure that they believe was hidden there by William Phipps. They were Phipps' allies and supposedly made a number of failed attempts to recover the treasure between 1700 and 1750. These English military artifacts dated to that same time period were also found in the big feature on Lot 5. In the money pit area, Billy pulls out this beam from 40 feet down. The beams below look much older than the ones higher up. Once the dendro and carbon dating information determine which one of the shafts is shaft 2, the team will then be able to zero in on the original money pit shaft because it is documented as being 14 feet away from shaft 2. Next time on an all-new episode of The Curse of Oak Island called Whistle While You Work. The team is thrilled yet concerned when the investigation of the Golden Egg, an area that scientific evidence suggests the legendary riches are hidden, immediately shows signs that they've come upon an underground void, but it may be collapsing. There's no preview of that episode so far, but there's a link in the upper right to the extended preview for Season 12 in its entirety. And that showed right after the 2-hour season premiere. I'll be continuing recapping the Season 12 episodes as they air late Tuesday nights and retro no-cap recaps of Seasons 7 and 8 as I have time. Seasons 1 through 6 and 9 through 11 are already done and are in my Oak Island playlist. I'm also doing retro no-cap recaps of Seasons 2 through 4 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Seasons 1 and 5 are all done and are in the Skinwalker Ranch playlist. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Sempre avanti.